I'd like to talk about something that isn't really spoken about much, and that's toxic positivity. Who would have thunk that that's ever a thing? But it is. It's the same as toxic spirituality being too positive. Anything that is not in balance is going to end up leaning into toxicity. So, what is toxic positivity? Well, I've had some examples of that in my life lately. Some wonderful people who just won't go where it's uncomfortable. And there's this kind of survival mechanism. As soon as something gets uncomfortable, oh no, we're not going to go there. Let's stay in the positive. And it's either said outright or it's insinuated. And so, toxic positivity, what would that be? I'm just only wanting to hear what's good in your life and what you're doing about anything that's not quite working for you in a positive way. I don't want to hear about the world being in trouble. Um, let's just stay. I'm going to lean over here. This is the love and light section. I'm just going to lean over into the love and light section. Peace, joy, bliss, and love and light. And feel yummy and just feel that yumminess. And it's nice. Yeah, sure. But the thing is that after a while, it should make one uncomfortable. It sure does me. And that's because my being is longing for balance. I'm going over here. Actually, this is where the light is with the skylight. And I'm wanting balance. I want to lean into that which is also the nitty-gritty, that which is challenging, you know? I want to test out my capacities for being uncomfortable because actually it's all one, right? Comfortable, uncomfortable, positive, so-called negative. This is where we split ourselves up. This is where we create duality. This is where we start to go into inner division. And a lot of spirituality, unfortunately, is leaning over into that I want to be light section. And that can include transcendence, you know. I do believe and feel that transcendence is a stage during the awakening journey that is very powerful and valuable, was for me. But if one is using it in order to be able to deal and cope with one's life and not come back down to earth, I'm just going to transcend. I'm not the body. I'm not the mind. I'm not the problems of the world. Just going to make them poof, disappear. So this kind of toxic positivity is not too much different from that. And a lot of people who are kind of geared for wanting to avoid being uncomfortable will lean into that. And well, it's not complete. Let's be honest. It's an incomplete understanding about life. It's an incomplete understanding about spirituality. And it's kind of in the end unfriendly to the parts of us that are wanting to be included, the parts of us that feel denied, that feel disconnected from the whole. The one that feels some grief or some even, Lord help us, some anger. Whatever it is that one has placed in that category, oh, here's the category, that is just not acceptable, right? That's not welcomed. That's where the work lies. Okay. That's where the work lies. Because really, we want to be in support to both the beauty and what's difficult, and not create a division inside of what's welcome and what's not. Because when we do, we're missing the point and we're voiding out a whole half of our experience, a whole half of the what's happening in the world. Okay. So really what we're wanting to do is to grow up enough emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, to be able to be present to the nuance of everything that's arising. and to actually stop putting things in the division, the category of good and bad. That's got to end for true awakening to take place. It's got to be inclusive. Awakening's inclusive. Awakening, realization, non-dual awakening is the inclusion. It's so inclusive that it includes everything. And you'll see some teachers who are still doing the transcendence piece where everything's consciousness and they don't want to come down into the nitty-gritty, and they call the emotional world the trash can. I actually heard one really well-known teacher who I personally like, who I'm not going to name because I'm not into doing that. I actually heard him say that the emotions and feelings are the trash can, and they're in the back of the house, in the gutter. Don't go back into the trash can and pick up the trash. And I just thought, wow, this is it wasn't there for to be a to receive a teaching, but I was there in order to be able to actually appreciate and honor the teacher. And I was just really shocked, thinking this is just not a complete teaching and it's not supportive to people. The awakening realization has got to include and be deep enough, encompassing enough to include the whole totality. And, I often say, take a piece of blank paper and draw a line down the middle. And on one side, put what it is that you welcome and want in life and think is acceptable and good. And the other side, put all the things that you don't welcome and that you shun, that you don't want. And then erase the center line, do this with a pencil, and then see how inclusive this yes to being here is supposed to really be. And I have a little secret to tell you in case you're not aware of it for yourself. That's a secret that I discovered. And that is when we really welcome everything, and we welcome the good and the bad and the ugly, everything, that they blend and you can't really distinguish anymore, really, what's so good and what's so bad. I mean, you have discernment, of course. Of course, you have discernment. But bliss is no different in a way than the gutter. A positive emotion is not so much better anymore than a challenging one. A great moment is not so much better than not such a great moment. And I'm not saying that it all gets kind of all equalized. It's not true. It's more the energy of it. It's more the vibrational energy of it is welcomed. Okay? You don't become an idiot and just say, oh, there's no difference. But it's when there's a deep welcoming and everything is welcomed, there's sort of a neutralizing. And when people talk about disidentification is the path to enlightenment, to be disidentified. You probably heard of that. Well, disidentification might seem like in the beginning, and maybe some people really mean it that way, that you don't mess with it. You just rise above, right? Transcend. And you're kind of looking at it from above and you're looking down below and you're just not going to get stuck in it and glued in it. I get that. I mean, I understand that. That's a part of the journey. But really, the embrace of totality and knowing oneself as everything is an embrace, okay, is that what that is, what one thinks one should not be identified with, one realizes, you realize that that's God too. And it's not separate from God. It is God too. So if it's God, what are we doing trying to avoid it? When it's that, they call it that, with a capital T. It's a really nice way to talk about that, God. When it's everything is that, everything is that, then this is it too. So what is the purpose and the reason to push it away? So when we don't push something away, we actually are able to integrate and we don't get identified with it anymore. We don't have to worry about it because when it's seen as one with totality, it doesn't have the gravitational sticky pull of something that one feels is separate would have, right? So when we resist something, we're creating identification. So when you step away and you have a transcendence to what it is you're being identified with, let's say that's the way you're doing it, or a stage, then it takes away the stickiness, but it won't stay because that requires effort. And a realization in the end is effortless. Effortless. It should just be naturalized. So in the end, you don't have to be afraid of being identified to anything because when everything is known as that, then it doesn't have the stickiness anymore. Oh, there's a piece of trash. It is what it is. There's a beautiful flower. I think I'll smell the flower. But so there's discernment, but there isn't necessarily like I should pretend this isn't here. So I can just imagine that the world is just full of flowers. So that's kind of my point of this little banter um, about how if you find yourself leaning too much in the positive side of things for fear of the negative, then take a look at it and see if you can maybe expand your idea of what realization really is, and it's inclusive, okay? And if you find yourself around some of the people that I'm speaking about, maybe you'll have a better understanding why it doesn't feel so great afterwards. It's like, well, I just spent an hour or two with somebody that I can't be myself with because myself is inclusive and it includes everything. And it doesn't have a problem talking about something difficult because it doesn't push it away. So that's ideally to me a healthy person, a healthy spirituality, a healthy society that is not making things wrong that are uncomfortable, basically. So I hope this is helpful. And I wish you a beautiful, positive day or evening that it includes you as you are right now and is not waiting for you to be any different, for you to know that you are that, just as you are. More blessings.